Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am Michelle Dunnick, Director of Events and Investor Relations at United Way. United Way of Southeast Louisiana, together with Louisiana Hospitality Foundation and Entergy Corporation, are proud to support Phase 2 of the Hospitality Cares Pandemic Response Fund, which provides legal support and counseling services for hospitality industry professionals in partnership with Southeast Louisiana Legal Services and Loyola Center for Counseling Education. In addition to legal aid, Southeast Louisiana Legal Services will also provide monthly online events on hot topics that relate to the hospitality industry. For a full list of topics and to register for future online events, visit unitedwaycela.org/hospitalitycares-events. I also wanted to mention a mortgage and rental assistance program is available for qualified Orleans Parish residents through a partnership with United Way, SELA, BET, and United Way Worldwide. Requirements include being an Orleans Parish resident, household income at or below $61,000, and proof of job loss or reduction of hours due to COVID-19. To learn more, visit unitedwaycela.org/mortgage or unitedwaycela.org/rent. Thank you for joining us. I will turn it over to the staff attorneys, Constance and Marie from Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. Ladies.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Michelle. We're really excited to be with you here today. My name's Constance. I'm here with my colleague, Marie. We're in the Employment and Benefits Office unit at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. We're here to talk to you today about understanding benefits, particularly unemployment benefits during COVID-19. There's quite a lot of material to go through. We ask that you save your questions for the end. We'll do our best to answer those questions live, but should you need to, we'll also provide referrals for you to reach out to if we can't answer your questions today. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. So, okay, so again, this is who we work through, Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. I'm Constance, and you'll be hearing from both me and Marie today. We're just going to go right into it. New unemployment laws during the pandemic. So there's three main types that you need to understand. And, knowing the difference between each program is very important because the different rules apply to each program and different benefits apply. There's regular state unemployment insurance, and pre-COVID, that's what you may be familiar with or may have experienced in the past. But with the CARES Act, there's two new types. There's the pandemic unemployment assistance, and then there's pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. And it gets confusing because you'll fall under one of these brackets, unemployment insurance or pandemic unemployment assistance. And just because you're COVID affected doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be under PUA, pandemic unemployment assistance. You may qualify for regular unemployment insurance. So we're going to kind of tease that out with you today. So state unemployment insurance, it's essentially for people who have a history of W-2s in their designated base period. We're going to go through how to determine your base period later in these slides. This means that someone that recently new self-employed workers might qualify for regular state insurance. Some independent contractors may qualify for state unemployment insurance if they have enough W-2 earnings. And that's where it gets a little complicated because even if you have 1099s, this does not mean that you will automatically qualify for PUA benefits. And then there's PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. Also, it's available for those that don't qualify for unemployment insurance and are unemployed due to a COVID-19 reason. So an idea of who these individuals would be, it's say you don't have enough wages in your base period to qualify for regular unemployment insurance. If you're not available to work due to being sick with COVID-19, caring for someone in your household who's sick with COVID-19, caring for someone in your household, or someone in your household is COVID-19 ill. So just a fear of catching COVID-19 isn't enough to get you there. You would have to actually have someone affected directly. The program lasts 39 weeks for the time period of January 27th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And the minimum amount is 107, and that's automatic without proof of earnings. Say you didn't have a base period at all, you're going to be put at that 107 bracket. And a maximum benefit amount is at 247 if you can provide proof of earnings. So I'm going to let Marie take over here, I'll finish up on PUA. Job attachment is very important for the consideration. If you were laid off to a reason that's not COVID-19 related prior to the pandemic crisis, then you technically don't qualify. The PUA rules are very strict, and should you apply for PUA and you don't fall within the brackets that we're talking about today, it could result in a disqualification of benefits. It can also result in an overpayment, and that's when things get really complicated and problematic. So you definitely don't want to find yourself there. Should you find yourself there, we encourage you reaching out for services if you're having trouble navigating the overpayment system. And like I said earlier, being scared to contract COVID-19 is not a reason to qualify for PUA. Being available to work is still important for PUA eligibility unless you're sick with COVID-19. You will continue to qualify for PUA under PUA until the agency can determine you are eligible for regular unemployment. Once you're qualified for regular unemployment, your benefit program will change. So that's kind of the gist of PUA and the difference between UI and PUA. And now we're going to go into pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, and I'm going to let Marie take over from here.
Hi, so again, my name's Marie. So I apologize if there's any construction noise or sounds. They're working at my home, but I will do my best that I can to minimize the noise for you all. So pandemic emergency unemployment compensation is usually for those who are under regular unemployment insurance. So if you're under PUA, you don't really have to worry about this. There are some people who might have been under PUA and regular unemployment insurance that have to worry about PEUC, but this is mostly those who are only receiving unemployment insurance under the regular state program. So PEUC is basically an extension benefit program that is supposed to last for 13 weeks. But for those who are just now filing for PEUC, this doesn't mean you're going to get benefits for 13 weeks. It means you're going to get benefits up to December 31st of 2020. The 13-week program, it's basically for those who applied for unemployment insurance way earlier, as in March or April when the pandemic first started. So if you were a late unemployment filer, for whatever reason, you became unemployed in June or July, that 13 weeks might not be what you're getting. It's just a 13-week program up to December 31st of 2020. So I know that sounds a little confusing, but I just wanted to clarify to avoid any confusion, especially for those who are just applying for this extension benefit program. So this program lasts until December 31st, but the actual last week that one will receive benefits for is the week ending on December 26th. So this is a rule based on the Department of Labor. It's beyond the agency's control, but just to give you a heads up, especially for those who are already receiving extension benefits under this program, most likely that will be your last week of payment. We don't know if there is going to be another extended benefit program available, or if the agency is going to decide to continue paying out benefits for those who are still filing under this program. By December, we don't know that. A lot of things could change within the next couple of months, especially in January. But if we have any information, we will gladly provide that once that time comes. But the first step that you do when you're applying for extension of benefits is that you will have to wait till your benefits are completely exhausted. So if you see that you're reaching that point, it's a little too early to file right now. So if you see that there's still like $100 in your balance, you might not have to file until maybe 1 or 2 weeks later. It just depends on what your weekly benefit amount is. But I always suggest clients, like if you feel like your balance is reaching zero and you are an unemployment insurance claimant, just kind of divide your balance based on your weekly benefit amount. So if your weekly benefit amount is $50 and you have $200 left on your claim balance, you want to divide 200 by 50, which would be 4. So technically you would have 4 more weeks under regular unemployment insurance. And then by the 5th week, if you calendar it right, you would now be able to refile. The reason why people can't refile early is just because it creates a problem within the system of Louisiana Workforce Commission. So just wait till your benefits exhaust to a balance of 0. So just keep checking your claim summary. It's always important for all claimants to just check your claim summary information on the top. It's information that's necessary for you, but also it shows if there are any unresolved issues that might pop up. So once you know those issues, you can quickly, catch them and try to communicate with the agency, especially how backlogged they are right now. So the first step is, yes, of course, wait till your benefits are exhausted. And then once you see that your balance hits 0, you'll have to wait till the following Sunday to file. Like I said, filing too early will just cause a glitch in the system, and the system itself will actually prevent you from filing again. So you'll see something pop up saying error, or you already have a file open. So that might alarm you, and I don't want you to freak out if you see this, because it is a lot of information and it's a very difficult time. So if your last week that you filed and received a payment would be this Sunday, you would have to wait till the following Sunday. So it would be the week ending on the 21st of November. That's when you would file again for unemployment benefits. And then it's just the same application for unemployment. It's literally you going through the same steps that you did very first time. So don't feel confused if you think that this is like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this again? It's just, that's how the agency works. They have to first determine that you are not qualified for regular state unemployment insurance. And then once they've made the determination, the agency will then release whether you qualify under the pandemic unemployment assistance or the extended benefit program. I just want to warn everyone, because this is something that's happening. We're not sure how the agency will address the issue or resolve it, but we know that the system has been creating an error showing that people are qualified under pandemic unemployment assistance and extended benefit program of PEUC. So if you do refile and you see that you have 2 notices showing you that you qualify for both programs, you most likely only qualify for PEUC, which is the extended benefit program. I'm not sure why the system tells claimants they're eligible, they might be eligible for PUA. I believe it's just because the system itself is already programmed to show what are the programs available when one isn't technically eligible for regular state unemployment insurance. But most likely you will fall under the extended benefit program, because those are just the rules provided by the Department of Labor that one must first be considered for regular unemployment insurance and then extended benefit programs before they can even qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance. Because as Constant mentioned, pandemic unemployment assistance is a very broad program, but it's also very limited as to who can qualify under it, because it's specifically for those who just cannot qualify for state unemployment insurance at all. So it can get a little tricky, but just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that issue. So if you see that there's a glitch in the system, please feel free to reach out to Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. We'll have more information on how to contact us, but we can gladly assist with this problem if you're eligible for our services. Oh, and then again, this is just like a short tutorial on how to refile. So this slide tells you, log into your Hire account. If you don't have a Hire account, you can also call the help desk line, which the number is there for you. Again, the best times to call are between 8 a.m. till 5, and the number is 1-866-783-5567. If you do call, unfortunately, there's a lot of people calling, so there's long waiting lines. So if you plan on calling, I would just suggest to call early and kind of keep in mind that you might be on the phone for a very long time. So if you have other commitments, just keep, allocate time properly. And also, if you don't have a Hire account, it's always good to have one because you can check it. The agency does assist with setting one up, but they're pretty backlogged, so they won't get to you if you're trying to do this. But if you have access to your phone, you can do it through your phone. If that's difficult for you, then if you can find a computer, find a way to do it. It's just very helpful, especially when you might have a problem in your claim that you don't want to know days later about it. The Hire account just shows all the information you need automatically for the most part.
Yeah.
So once you're on your Hire account, if you haven't, if you've kind of forgot how to file or you had someone else file for you, just know that when you log in, you'll see this page that is in front of you. And right at the left corner at the top, you'll see 3 dashes, which includes the menu, and you click on the menu. And then after that, you will go to the headliner that says Services for Individuals. And then under Services for Individuals, you'll click on where it says Unemployment Services, and you'll have to scroll down a bit, but you'll see File a Claim, and then it should let you file your claim all over again. Again, you have to wait till the following Sunday. So if today was your last payment week, don't file tomorrow. You want to file until Sunday because the system is just going to prevent you from filing, and so you're going to get frustrated or feel overwhelmed. And right now, it's not the best time to feel that way, especially when it's something that, it just won't let you file right now. Just file until Sunday. And if you have a problem with that, just call us. I know that specifically people who are not U.S. citizens, but are lawful permanent residents or have asylum status who are qualified for unemployment benefits. I know sometimes you have to provide additional documents, so it causes you to have another glitch in the system. So if that is your situation, please call us because we can help resolve that issue. It's usually very easy. It's just since the agency is so backlogged, they probably won't get to you until weeks later. And it's really, we don't want you to wait that long to receive your benefits. So if it's something like that, please call us because we can help with that. Usually it's just a matter of alerting them that the documents are already uploaded, and it should resolve easily.
Oh, so what Marie and I put together was some common questions that we get from clients, and we were just going to go through those to maybe clear up any confusion. And I suppose, Marie, do you want to take the first one, or?
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll do the math next, and we'll call it even.
Okay. So how do you know what your base period is? So this is a really important question because your base period basically determines what your weekly benefit amount is going to be. Your base period is literally a whole entire year worth of months. So that's divided into 4 quarters. But your base period will depend on when you first filed for unemployment benefits. So if you filed way back in February or March, your base period is probably going to overlap between 2018 and 2019. Now, if you're a late filer, like someone who files in late April or May, sometimes your base period is going to be within the 2019 period. So it just depends on when you file, but the way the agency will determine this is that they will go back 6 months from the date that you filed. So if I filed on July 1st, they would go back to 6 months backwards, which would be December 31st of 2019. And then from then on, they will backtrack 4 months. So not 4 months, sorry, 4 quarters, which will be a year. And so my whole base period will be 2019 instead of the previous months that I filed for. So that can get a little confusing because a lot of people will say, oh, I earned all of this money between January and June. And so that should be my base period, but your base period is specifically 6 months before you filed for unemployment benefits. And then from backtracking 6 months, you'll backtrack a year out in time, and then that year will be your base period. Like I said, it's divided into 4 quarters. So I provided an example here, which each quarter would be 3 months. So if your whole base period is the year 2019, it would be from January to March would be your first quarter, and so on, April through June, your second quarter. Again, this might look different for you. It just depends on when you filed. So don't think that it will be a traditional calendar year. If you were a filer in March and you go back 6 months, your base period is going to overlap with 2018. So it would be another 3 months of the period. So it's just important to keep that in mind. So everything that you've earned within that base period is what's going to be counted for your weekly benefit amount. And that's how they are able to determine. So this is really important because a lot of people come to us and they tell us, well, I was a self-employed worker when the pandemic hit, and then I couldn't do catering anymore. There weren't any events that I can go to. Why am I under regular state unemployment insurance? Well, a lot of times we ask them, what is your base period? And they tell us, our base period is from 2018 to 2019 of whatever month. And it turns out that they worked at Whole Foods during that time, or they worked at, different other venues. And so it causes a problem because your base period is going to take those wages, not the wages that you earned right before COVID started. And so that's the reason most likely that person will be under regular state unemployment insurance, because by working at Whole Foods, they most likely got a W-2 in return. So those earnings are going to be counted for regular state unemployment insurance. Now, if you're a self-employed worker now, even though technically as a self-employed worker, you would qualify for PUA, it's not based on your work status so much. Your unemployment program is going to be based on more on where your base period earnings are coming from. So that's sometimes confusing because a lot of times you think that you're a PUA recipient. And so it's always just good to check your base period and what program you're under, because then that better will guide you as to what problems you might face or why your benefit, your weekly benefit amount is a certain amount instead of what your friend might be earning. So that's why the base period is very important. Again, so like I said, if you see that your base period is from 2018 to 2019 or whatever it is, those earnings are going to be counted, whatever you earned during that time. And if you weren't working and you didn't have any earnings during that time, that doesn't mean you're not qualified for unemployment insurance, because you might have been a self-employed worker during January, you started your business. So it just means, if you didn't have any earnings, then you probably would qualify for PUA in that circumstance. But the earnings are important to calculate from your base period. If something looks different, if you see that you didn't work for an employer during that time, or you might be missing employers or earnings from that time, you can always request a monetary redetermination and provide the W-2s that you received for those employers. So that's why the base period is also very important, because a lot of times we see clients who worked for 5 different companies and earned a lot of money. But for some reason, when they applied for their claim, they only had one employer's earnings processed through there. And a lot of times it could be that the employer they reported was outside of the base period, and so those earnings won't count. But sometimes those employers are under the same base period that the person has. And so we always want to make sure that we check it so that we can quickly add those other employers to your employer history. And that way, your weekly benefit amount might increase a couple of dollars or increase by the whole maximum amount, which is $247. And of course, if that is your situation, retroactive payment can be requested for all those weeks. You would only get the difference. You wouldn't get the full new weekly benefit amount. So if, let's say, you did a monetary redetermination, added the missing employment history, and now your weekly benefit amount has increased from $10, the agency will go back and do a retroactive of the difference for you. It takes a couple of days, sometimes up to a week or two, but the agency usually is pretty good about automatically doing it. But if that's something that you think you fall under, please reach out to us, because the monetary redetermination process does take a long time. It's taken some clients up to 2 months to wait for a determination to be issued. But once that determination has been processed, those wages will come back and they'll give you the retroactive payment.
Yeah, and to emphasize what Marie just said, it is important to remember to go back to your base period, because we have a lot of clients call that say, hey, my friend's similarly situated. We lost the same job. She's on PUA. I'm on UI. Why? And that kind of clears up that answer a lot. You can't compare yourself to other people. You have to go back to your base period. And if you want to check your weekly benefit amount, here's how. And be patient with me. Lawyers are not math friendly, and this is by no means an easy calculation. I don't know why it's set up this way. I just know this is the way to calculate it. So you must have at least a total of $1,200 in earnings. Then your total earnings based on your base period must be at least 1.5 times greater than your highest quarter earnings. Example, highest quarter, 3K, then your total earnings should at least be 4,500. So once you have determined the above information, you will need to take the average earnings from your base periods. And those were those little monthly breakups that Marie was going over earlier. So this means your total earnings divided by 4. And this is where it gets fun. Once you have the average, you take that average, you multiply it by 0.04. You take that answer, and then you need to multiply it by 1.05. Then you take that answer and you need to multiply it again, 1.15. Then you will need to round your answer down to get your weekly benefit amount. So a little example here, if it's $89.80, you're going to get $89 per week. Your benefit amount under state UI will last 26 weeks. Your benefit year will last for 52 weeks starting on the following Sunday from the week you first filed. You will need to wait until your benefit year ends to start a new claim. However, remember, you can apply for PEUC if you've exhausted your benefits prior to December 31st, 2020. You may qualify for the PUA for the remainder of the year. And then again, if you're on PUA, this doesn't really pertain to you. You don't have to worry about this period because it's going to carry out through December 31st, 2020. And then this is what a lot of our clients come to. It's come to us for. It's if they've received a disqualifying overpayment letter, what do I do next? And this, I'll let Marie take over, but this is why she was emphasizing earlier. It's very important to check your hire account often and always, because when you get these notices, you have a timeline in which to respond. And should you not respond, you could miss your deadline. So I'll let her emphasize that from here.
Yes, so yeah, checking your hire account is important. It's also important to know, because when you file for your unemployment benefits, it does ask you in the application what was your preferred contact method. So if you picked email address, it's usually pretty helpful because you'll get these notices automatically sent to your email address. And if you do choose mailing address, if that's the absolute only way that you can receive information, then it does take a little time. And so having that hire account is pretty helpful, because messages that you receive either through email or messages that are mailed out will be sent also to your hire account. So that way you can check it as well. I know a lot of people are suffering from disqualifications and overpayments right now. So when you get this notice, don't freak out. It takes time to understand these notices, so just read them as carefully as you can. But most of the time, all the time, it's a 15 business day time for you to appeal. So if you get the message, just look at the mailing date or the date that it was sent to you. Sometimes these notices are sent a day early, or like a day earlier than from the time that they're stamped on. And I'm not sure what's the reason, but it's always good to check that date. And it's always on the top left corner of the sheet that you receive. So it will be 15 business days from that date. So if you receive it on Monday, don't count the weekends, count the weekdays, which would be Monday through Friday. So you would have 3 weeks from that Monday, but really it's 15 business days. The 15 business days does exclude legal holidays. So some holidays are excluded, but just, for your own sake, don't rely on holidays, rely on the weekends as those little buffer days that give you a little extra time to reach us or to write your appeal. But as soon as you get the notice, 15 business days, you can appeal through your hire account. Your hire account really helps out with this, because you just quickly go to the appeal section of your unemployment, the unemployment section in your hire account. So just like the way I showed y'all back with the PUC, you go to the menu and then go to individual services, then the unemployment section itself where you file a new claim. Just scroll down under file a claim, you should see appeals, and you'll click it. And so when you go there, at first it's going to kind of just give you like an appeal overview. So you want to go to the section that says determination. Under the section of determinations, you click on the tab, and then it'll show you different pending issues that you might have. And so you want to make sure that you appeal the disqualification notice, but also the overpayment. A lot of times we have clients who only appeal the disqualification notice, then they reach out to us like way past 15 days from when they first appealed, and then they didn't appeal their overpayments. We can sometimes address this issue, but the letters themselves specifically say that if you have an overpayment issue, you have to also appeal the overpayment, because they're 3 different issues. So, this is something that's important and is said in the notice. So if you fail to read that, failure to read a notice isn't an excuse. Unfortunately, the agency is not lenient on that matter. So just please, if you see that you have 3 notices sent to you, appeal all of them. It sounds redundant, but if you reach out to us, we'll gladly provide a summary for each appeal that addresses each issue. But if it's just you doing it on your own, just quickly appeal it. Just say, I'm appealing this. I don't agree. I was entitled to these benefits. Whatever your situation is, write it down, and then just appeal it. The appeal is there. That's what's important, is to know that you are not agreeing with the determination that the agency made. So you can do this through your hire account. If you don't have a hire account, the notice itself will tell you different ways to do it. It tells you that you can email the form itself, and you have to sign it and provide information on where the administrative law judge can contact you and mail out different notices following after this notice that they just sent to you. So it's a great way to update your contact information, especially if it's changed. So just email it and make sure that it's stamped by the date that the notice sends you. So a lot of times the notice will tell you that the last day to mail it out is going to be a certain date. So mail it out by that date, even though that might not be the date within the 15 days that you have to appeal. That date is when you have to mail it out by, because By that time, they should receive the notice within the 15-day appeal period. It's very important that you do that because if you mail it out the day after, then it's going to be considered a late appeal if they don't receive it by the time that your 15 days are up. Again, if you have a disqualification letter or an overpayment letter that has been recently sent to you, reach out to Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. We can help with that if you're eligible for our services.
Yeah. And if you're reaching out and you're going through our intake process, also just to piggyback off that, let the intake person know, hey, I'm approaching a deadline. So that way we know that your situation needs to move faster than most. Because just like LWC's agency, we also have a high volume. So if you can make us aware of any deadlines on the onset, that'll help us.
Yeah, and you don't need a lawyer to appeal. So I mean, if it's something that if for whatever reason you're not eligible for our services, please don't feel like you need to have an attorney there. I mean, it is helpful to have one, but don't feel don't feel distraught that you can't do this appeal on your own. You don't need a lawyer, but like we said, if you do have an appeal issue and you believe that you are eligible for our services, reach out to us because that way we can help you from the beginning of this process. The administrative law judges right now have been, for the most part, understanding about the different circumstances that we're going through, but it doesn't change the fact that they're not going to be as hard on their decisions. So it's always important to have us there from the very beginning of your appeal stages. After an administrative law judge has made a decision, you still have 15 days to appeal again, but this time you'd be appealing to the Board of Review. And so the Board of Review will also give you some more information. But having us there from the very initial part is just super important because then we can help understand what the administrative law judge said, what were they reviewing, and also if there's any other information or proof of your status that we can help with in providing to the judge, we can assist with that. So this is just more information about that. How to appeal your disqualification. Like I said, the letter itself and when you appeal, it kind of gives you, even when you're in your higher account, it gives you an opportunity to update any contact information. So if you, for any chance, you lost your phone or you have a new phone number, it's always good to provide the correct number because the ALJ will reach out to that number that you provide. And if you only have 2 days before your hearing has been set to update that. So it's always good to make sure that whatever information you have for your contact is up to date. If the administrative law judge cannot reach out to you at the day of the hearing, they're not going to reschedule a hearing for you. It doesn't matter how bad your situation is. They are going to make a decision without you at the hearing. Even if we're there present at the hearing and you don't show up, the judge will make a decision for you. So it's always important to make sure that's up to date. And any necessary documentation, like I said, we can help assist in providing that to the judge. But if you're doing this on your own, you have to make sure that any kind of documentation that is necessary for your situation, that it's uploaded within the time period, because you can't provide it at the day of the hearing. You can't even provide it the day before the hearing. It has to be all submitted 2 business days before the hearing is set. So once you appeal, you usually will have to wait a couple of days, sometimes a month before your hearing is scheduled. So within that time that you're waiting for your appeal hearing to be scheduled, just gather all that information as fast as you can and provide it within your higher account. Once your appeal hearing date is set, you'll be given 7 days of waiting time before your hearing is officially set. So it's weird. So you appeal, and then after you appeal, you have to wait for it to get reviewed. Once it's reviewed, it will be automatically sent out to the Louisiana Workforce Commission to be scheduled for a hearing. So once you get that initial review notice that it's been approved, there's still a waiting period, so don't think that you have a hearing already scheduled when you get that notice. After that, you will probably wait a week or two. It depends on how fast the agency is going. Then you'll get an other notice that actually gives you a date and time for the hearing. And these hearings usually last about 30 minutes to an hour long. It just depends on how many issues you have. So for most clients who have had the disqualification and overpayment issue, these hearings do last about an hour and a half. But if you just have one issue, it usually just lasts about 30 minutes. Depending on whether you have an employer involved in your situation too. But these overpayments are, it's always good to appeal all the notices that you receive. And in regards to the overpayment, we have been seeing that a lot of times the agency hasn't been issuing a waiver of overpayment form. The waiver of overpayment form, it's basically a form that allows you to provide all the information of your expenses and also responsibilities that you have that would prevent you or cause the financial burden if you had to pay for an additional overpayment issue. It's important to complete that and also attach it with your appeal. Again, this form has to be completed and sent to the judge 2 business days before the hearing is scheduled. So if you get this form completed, a waiver can only be considered for regular state unemployment insurance, and also a waiver can only be considered for the additional $600 that everyone received during the pandemic. So if you're a PUA recipient, a waiver form is not going to be handed to you because a consideration for waiver isn't allowed for the federal aid. It's only allowed for the $600 amount that people have received, and also if you received under regular state unemployment insurance or the extended benefit program called PEUC. We don't know why it's not being considered for PUA recipients. But Congress just never actually provided any information on that when they wrote the statute for PUA benefits. They just provided that those benefits can be released to those who are eligible. So Congress themselves would have to write something saying waiver should be considered for these people receiving disaster unemployment insurance. So until then, we don't know what's going to happen. There could be changes within the next couple of months, but just know that a waiver of overpayment is only going to be considered for the additional $600 amount that you received under the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program and also regular state unemployment insurance. And if you already went to a hearing, like I said, you can still reach out to Southeast for help if you're eligible for our services. But again, you'll have 15 days from the time you receive the administrative law judge decision. 15 days will be business days again, and that's the time you'll have to appeal to the Board of Review. You can also do this through your Hire account. It's super easy. Once you get a decision, it will tell you where you at the bottom of the screen will say different information like upload a document, provide additional information, but you're going to hit the section that says appeal decision. So you'll appeal it, and then it will show you another screen similar to when you appeal your regular disqualification, and you can provide a short summary on why you're appealing it to the Board of Review, and also provide any documentation that wasn't made available for you at the time of your initial hearing. But just to let you all know, the Board of Review will only consider additional proof if that proof was absolutely not available to you at the time of your hearing. So if it's something that you already had way before your initial hearing, then the Board of Review is not going to consider it. So it's always important to have everything first for your first hearing. The Board of Review only reviews the administrative law judge's decision and also what you have to say as to why you're appealing the judge's decision. So the Board of Review will not schedule a hearing for you unless it's something out of the ordinary, but most of the time, 99% of the time, they're not going to schedule a hearing, so this is your last bet. But even after the Board of Review decision, if their decision is unfavorable, you can still file a petition for judicial review. Then again, you'll also have 15 business days from the time you receive the Board of Review's decision. 15 business days, and then you would have to file at your local district court. So if you're in Orleans Parish, you'll file at the Civil District Court of New Orleans. If you're in Jefferson Parish, most likely you will file at the 24th JDC. So it just depends on what parish you're in. So it's important that you file at the district court, not the city court, because they're two different courts. So wherever you're at, whether Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Tammany Parish, you need to file at your district court. It's free to file this petition. We usually help with judicial review petitions. However, we only help if we've been helping with your case since the beginning of the appeals issues. So if you have an appeal or disqualification that you think that you probably most likely aren't going to win, or it's just something, a very complicated issue, reach out to us now, not until way later when you have a Board of Review decision, because we really can't assist beyond that point if all those decisions have already been made for you. And again, the petition for judicial review, the way it's made, it's not as easy as filing an appeal with the BOR or with the administrative law judge. This one you'll have to kind of type out. There are sample copies of what they look like under different courts. It just depends on the court's rules. But I know that for Orleans Parish, they have a sample one listed on their website for the Civil District Court. That's kind of the format that you have to follow. But if that's, again, if you need help with that, just reach out to us. There could be a special circumstance where we'll take the case. But if you're in the appeals, the initial appeals time of your disqualification, reach out to us now because we can most likely help you with this.
Okay, so another question we have is, what if I'm working? Can I receive unemployment? And then we always answer a question with a question is, have your hours been reduced due to a shortage of work available for you due to COVID-19 reasons? Then you may. However, if your gross earnings are more than your weekly benefit amount, then you will not get your wage-based period. This is because of your excessive earnings for that week. Does that mean I should stop filing? That's a yes and no answer. Yes, if you were certain that you were going to be getting more work in the future. No, if your employer cannot guarantee that work will be available for you in the next week. For example, business is extremely slow at your workplace and your employer can only guarantee 1 day or a couple hours worth of work a week. And we've seen that a lot in the hospitality industry with restaurants trying to open back up and then volume not coming in. So that depends on your particular situation. And again, that's an assessment you need to make. So if you're back full-time, no, you cannot apply for unemployment. However, if you later become unemployed due to COVID-19 reasons, for example, we've seen businesses open and then reclose due to COVID and furlough their employees, you may be able to file your weekly certification. However, if it's been a couple of weeks, then you may have to refile due to the system possibly kicking you out. And you would still go through the same hire account in the process that you originally did it on. You can still log into your same hire. Who should not apply for unemployment? This will depend on what program you're eligible for, but know that people who are earning and have a full-time job should not be filing for unemployment. If you have no proof of earnings and want to be considered for PUA, you need to stay qualified under one of the PUA classifications. Simply being unemployed is only part of the PUA requirement in order to receive unemployment benefits. And like we said earlier, PUA is very strict. So if you have questions about that, we're happy to help you navigate that system, but you definitely don't want to get placed under PUA and then get a determination that you don't qualify for PUA. Like we were saying earlier, it can result in an overpayment, and then that's problems you don't want. If you're receiving paid leave, you do not qualify for unemployment for the weeks you're being paid, even if you are not returning to the place of employment. It's important that you report those payments, that if failure to report and collect benefits can result in overpayment. And it will be considered a fraudulent overpayment, which is, waiver becomes pretty much impossible at that point. So there's other forms of relief that we wanted to touch on. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also known as FFCRA. It's effective April 1st through December 31st, 2020. So we see a lot of these programs coming to close at the end of the year. And like Marie said earlier, it's up to Congress to legislate more relief. But this one's kind of a twofold benefit. It includes the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act and the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act. So it's specific to employers with less than 500 employees, and it excludes independent contractors, so 1099 workers. Some exceptions do apply for businesses with less than 50 employees, but the businesses have to apply for that exception. So it's paid sick leave and it's paid FMLA leave for public health emergency, aka childcare. So the first part of it, payments to employees depend on your normal schedule as well as why you are taking leave. If you're taking leave and you're unable to work or telework due to these reasons, you're subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. You've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to COVID concerns. You experience symptoms of COVID-19 and you are seeking a medical diagnosis. Those have to go twofold. You receive for each applicable hour the greater of your regular rate of pay, the federal minimum wage in effect under SLLS, or the applicable state or local minimum wage. You are entitled to a max of $511 or $5,110 over the entire paid sick leave period. So if you, and then the second part of this, if you are taking paid sick leave because you are caring for an individual who is subject to a quarantine order due to COVID, or an individual who has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, so if you're caring for someone in your household, if you're caring for your child whose school or place of care is closed or child care provider is unavailable due to COVID-19 related reasons. So that's been very helpful for some of our clients who have childcare problems. Experiencing any other substantially similar condition that may arise as specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services, you're entitled to compensation at 2/3 of the grade of the amounts listed on the previous slide. So in this case, if you fall under this bracket, you're subject to a maximum of 200 per day, 2,000 over the entire period. So, and then there's some more, for more detailed information on this FFCRA specifically, I have a website here. And again, we are recording and we're going to share this, so don't feel like you have to scramble to write these addresses or these websites down as we go over some helpful links for you. This will be shared. So if you want to come back to this and look into this further and see if you do qualify for FFCRA, this is the best route to go about it. So here we put together just some tips and resources that may help you resolve your matter, especially if it's not too complicated on your own or if you have any questions. So I'll let me and Marie are just going to go back and forth here. I'll let her.
So yeah, the Office of the Governor's website is always pretty helpful. It's even helpful to us as attorneys, but it's the https gov.louisiana website. If you just go to the governor's website, it should pop up, especially when you Google search it. So don't feel like you have to have this exact URL with you, but just type up Office of the Governor for Louisiana and it'll pop up. But they have really great COVID-19 related resources and FAQs. What's cool about this website is that you also have information about the new governor's orders. That's always helpful because it also provides kind of different extensions and suspensions of appeal processes or anything related to unemployment as well. So it's really helpful even to us. In addition, you'll have information about what are the phase 3 safety guidelines. So whatever the governor has approved, that's pretty much going to apply for the whole entire state. So if you are, especially in the hospitality industry, any kind of work, it will give you information. And this is really important, especially with businesses not complying with safety regulations, allowing people to just walk in without masks. These guidelines kind of tell you what's okay and what's not okay. And so this is information you can report. And the following slides give more information on different places where you can report violations. This is the Louisiana Workforce Commission info page that we set up. Again, it's louisianaworks.net to just kind of go to the main workforce page. And you can call them as well at the 866 number. Again, it's super backlogged, so just kind of prepare yourself for extreme waiting periods. But they have great videos on how to file your unemployment claim, especially for those who are just filing for unemployment benefits right now. You know, it kind of gives you the basics on how to do it from the very start. Also, there are videos on how to do your work searches. I know that's another issue that's been around since August, but it's kind of complicated for those who are just, you know, just starting to do it. It kind of tells you, you know, how to report each application that you do a week, that you have to do 3 work searches each week. There are some people who are exempt from that, but usually if you are exempt, you'll receive a notice from the Louisiana Workforce Commission telling you that you don't have to do it. So for the most part, everyone has had to do their work searches. But it also gives you information on how to reset your password, how to reset your username, and also if you've lost both of them. So if you've lost both your password and username, it's super complicated to get it, especially right now. Even with us and getting involved, sometimes the agency doesn't want to help because it's private information, and so they don't want to release it to just anyone. So there is information on how to do that at the louisianaworks.net page that it's helpful. And they also have other documents, especially if you've lost your information booklet that they give you every time when you apply for benefits. Usually you can just get it through your Hire account, but if it's like that's too much for you or you can't access it for whatever reason, the website actually has a section for claimants' rights and information. And so you'll have all these documents, even things like from prior, you know, previous years that doesn't really apply now, but it's a lot of good resources on who would qualify for PUA, you know, how to calculate your weekly benefit amount, like all that information we just went over, you can find it there in the Claimants Info Rights Handbook. Oh,
So,
yeah.
oh, I'll let you take it if you want. I just wanted to piggyback off something Marie said earlier, and while we're talking about LWC and your Hire account, I reached out to the agency directly, and I was telling them about the information we'd be providing today. And I was telling them that I do have clients that have trouble setting up Hire accounts. They have access to internet issues. And normally, and you still can call in, but like Marie said, they're backlogged. And their best advice is to try to access a computer by yourself, whether it be a local library or a friend, just so you can get what you're trying to get done. You can get this accomplished faster if you can find a computer on your own rather than waiting on the phone. And that was their advice to me directly. So just remember that your certifications need to be done weekly. You will not get paid for weeks you don't certify. You can call in to certify, or you can do it on your Hire account. The Hire account's very user-friendly. Continue to file each week as long as you're unemployed and you're eligible to claim benefits. Each weekly certification claims benefits for the prior week. If you forgot to file on Sunday or Monday, you may file on any other day of that week. The deadline, though, is Friday by 4 p.m. So, and we can't harp this enough. Check your Hire account often for messages and status updates. I was going to close a client the other night, and we had no idea, and we just we got an email, and there's a new problem, and there's a deadline. So it's really important that you go into your account often. And like Marie said, if you miss those deadlines, they're not forgiving. If your unemployment was not a result of the pandemic, remember your maximum potential entitlements for benefit is regular UI 26 weeks, and then you would fall under PEUC the additional 13 weeks of extended benefits for 13 weeks. And then we have some legal aid directories for you. An online legal directory that answers very broad questions and may help direct you in the right place is louisianalawhelp.org. Free legal aid, if you want to find out if you're eligible for legal aid rather than calling, you can go to this website and it will check your parish and your income eligibility. This is probably my favorite link for people that question if they qualify for legal aid or legal services, and that includes Southeast Louisiana. What's the other one, Marie? Acadiana?
Acadiana Legal Services, but Acadiana is for those who are on the west part of the Mississippi River. I know that's crazy, but that's kind of how we resolve it here at our office. But yeah, if you're in the western part of the Mississippi River, then you're most likely going to be an Acadiana Legal Service.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, lastate.kempscaseworks.com is a great way to see if you qualify for services if you'd rather use the internet. And then should you not qualify for free legal aid, the Louisiana State Bar Association has modest means attorneys you can apply for, and that's kind of where I direct clients when they aren't eligible for our services. And then if you have just quick answers that you think of later today, or you need to send out, the Louisiana Bar Association always recommends that people go to lafreelegalanswers.org, where you can just kind of ping a quick question to an attorney and get a response. So again, these sources are going to be shared on social media for you all to refer back to. So if you are interested in our services, again, Marie and I are with Southeast Louisiana Employment and Benefits Unit at Legal Services. Our intake website is at www.slls.org. It's under our Get Help button on the main screen, or you can call for intake. And that's the number there, 844-244-7871. And we also have a blog, and it has a lot of great information. A lot of the things we've gone over today, and future questions you may have about housing, anything COVID related, we're trying to get as much information as we can on that blog. And then I'll let Marie take over the job safety and the workplace recommendations for you.
So job safety in the workplace, which I said, again, the governor's page is always a really good place to see, you know, what phases we're in, if phases have been extended or not, to see what the new policies and regulations are for each business place. So we'll go over them quickly on the next slide. Okay, so Louisiana Department of Health, it provides resources on how to defend yourself against COVID, employee return to work guidance, and open safely guidance for businesses. And it also gives you information about community testing centers and any other alerts about COVID. But what's good about this website is that it kind of tells you information on whether or not you're a high-risk individual. I know that a lot of people right now are scared about getting COVID-19. But also there are a lot of people who have legitimate reasons as to why they're concerned, as in, you know, you might be a person over the age of 50. You might have, you know, a pre-existing condition that would put you in a high risk category. So this is also important for you, because if you feel for whatever reason you might be on one of those brackets, Louisiana Department of Health kind of gives you all this information on that. It's also helped us better advocate for a lot of our clients who are under these categories for high risk. Even clients who not necessarily themselves have these pre-existing conditions, but might live with family members who have these conditions. So, you know, this really helps us with unemployment services, especially for those who might not qualify for regular state unemployment insurance, but qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance. This kind of helps you navigate to see if you fall under that bracket. Some examples that I think are kind of unique, but also people don't know about it because it's kind of, you know, interesting. It's like, for example, I had a client whose kids are have extreme asthma symptoms and problems. So they can't necessarily work at any other, you know, just any place, especially places that would give them a greater risk of getting into contact with COVID-19. We were able to help this client get pandemic unemployment assistance after weeks of being denied for regular state unemployment insurance. And it, you know, this kind of helps, you know, even if this information you don't think really applies to you, you're like, why do I need to know about, you know, whether or not COVID is an issue? We know it's an issue, but it kind of gives you that information. So can better, it helps us and also helps you know if you're one of those people that have been denied unemployment benefits just because you had other issues in your claim. You might be a PUA recipient because of what this Department of Health guideline has shown you. Also reporting to OSHA. It's a great way, especially if your place of employment isn't following protocols. As much as we want people to go back to work and get everything back together, your safety is very important. And even if your employer is forcing you to go to work and you don't feel safe, you do have rights to enforce guidelines that are important to follow right now, especially with entering the flu season. We have COVID and flu to look out for. So if you feel like that's something that's happening in your workplace where your employer just simply isn't enforcing anything, OSHA is a great, you can go to osha.gov, and over there you can report any employer violations. But also it's a great site if you haven't been paid your wages. Reporting unpaid wages can be done through OSHA. Our office also assists with that, just to let y'all know. But if this is something that's a big thing that's happening to a lot of employees at your workplace, OSHA will address these issues with the employer, especially if it's a big business. And you're seeing that people are, especially with right now that there's a shortage of people available to work because of all the COVID risks that are there. Sometimes people have been forced to take overtime or work double shifts, but aren't exactly being compensated for that fairly. Reporting it to OSHA is something that you have the right to do.
Marie, do you know if people can make anonymous reports if they're worried about COVID, so that way they don't risk employer retaliation?
Yeah, I believe you can, but even if you do report your employer, it is against the law, for the employer to retaliate. So, that is another lawsuit that can happen. So, we don't necessarily sue employers at our office, but it's something to be on the lookout. If you have a work safety violation and you don't feel comfortable reporting your name, you can report to the state fire marshal anonymously, which is on the next site. So that's a good other avenue that you have, because OSHA is a federal agency. They do have local offices, but the federal agencies take longer time to address local issues. So if there is if it's something concerning work safety violation, then you can report anonymously or with your name to the Louisiana Office of State Fire Marshals. They used to have an automatic link that could allow you to just report anything, but now you have to actually go to their website and do this all manually for whatever reason. So you can do that here. And you can even report things even if you're not working yourself and there's, you go to your grocery store, it's the only grocery store you can walk to, and they're not complying with safety protocols. You can report that business here too. That's also important. You don't want to put yourself at risk, especially if you're going, if you need to go to that place to get your food for your family. It's important that you do this. We've been able to address some issues with local courts too. If even if it's not an employment matter and you have to go to court, this is a great place to report any safety protocols.
And lastly, we know this is a really trying time. A lot of our clients are stressed. We feel the stress as well. We're all facing a global pandemic together. So I just think it's important to highlight, if you or someone is feeling overwhelmed with stress, fear, anxiety, there's the Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline. We want to make it readily available to everyone. Should you need to reach out and talk to someone, it connects you to a trained counselor. They can offer you support. They can direct you to mental health resources. And also, if there's substance abuse counseling that someone may be in need of, we highly recommend calling. It's 1-866-310-7977, and they're available 24/7, and all calls are confidential. So we just think it's important to highlight that right now. And that pretty much concludes today's lecture as far as the PowerPoint goes. We did receive some questions before our talk today, and Maria and I were vetting those, and some of them were housing related questions, and we would encourage you to reach out to SLLS's intake information that we showed earlier. Again, this is going to be reshared to you, so you can go back and get that, or you can go to www.slls.org. Some of those were specific employment benefit and unemployment questions. Michelle is going to share my number to my office. If you're hospitality related and you're experiencing unemployment benefits, that's particularly what I'm here for. My office is 504-529-1000, and it's extension 287. One call and one voicemail is sufficient. I get back to my clients as soon as I can, but like everyone right now in all agencies and all resources, we are backlogged, so be patient with us. If you have another issue that's not unemployment related and you feel like you should apply for services, again, call our intake number. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so I know there were other two questions put on the chat box for us. So the first one is, what is the best way to handle issues that are holding up weekly payments under an approved PEUC? I have emailed LWC in the specified format to address the two issues and added documentation and have not heard back. Okay, so call us at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, because we can better. So what we usually do is we reach out to some of the people that we have in contact with. It could be just because the agency is super backlogged, they won't automatically get to this message. So you might, like, it seems like you've waited a long time. So I would just call us so that we can help address the issue. It's just, really the agency is just backlogged. So what you did was correct, addressing it, but it's gonna take time for them to follow up. So just reach out to us. Our information was provided. And then the second question, this is actually a really good question. It says, how is it that issues have come up under PEUC and not for state benefits when nothing is different or has changed? For example, when I applied for PEUC, once state benefits had expired, I was asked if I had collected vacation pay for that week in October. I answered no, as I haven't worked since March, and now that's an issue. I'm not sure why that was a problem for you. Like I said, I have had clients who, for some reason, either have a similar name as another individual or some information is like similar. And sometimes that causes a problem with PEUC. Because PEUC is an extended benefit program, so it's like a supplement to the regular PUA and unemployment insurance benefits. So the agency has to be a little more strict on considering who is eligible for those programs. It doesn't have anything to do with the claimants, and sometimes it's really the agency having issues with the Department of Labor. So the Department of Labor has told the agencies throughout the nation to just be more vigilant with PEUC. It's a federal program, it's not really a state program. And also they have to look into everything. That's kind of the reason why there's only one application available right now. Because if it's a federal program, it's guided under the Department of Labor, even more so. And so they have to make sure that whoever is getting it is actually eligible for it. So it's just an issue of the agency trying to be accountable for whatever they're approving, because they are obligated to report the number of claimants they have and who is receiving under what program to the Department of Labor each quarter. So it's just them being extremely more vigilant, especially with a lot of people now being disqualified for PUA because of an issue regarding to job attachment, or just for whatever reason, the agency is now telling them they're not qualified.
Oh, and Maria, I'm looking over the questions that were pre-submitted, and there was one we had went over together that you answered It's are employers required to notify employees when a coworker tests positive for COVID-19?
Oh, yeah.
And due to legal issues, they can't tell you not necessarily who tested positive, but they should tell the staff when there's exposure. And you were saying there's limited circumstances, for example, if it's just you and another person in an office, but outside of that, they're required to tell employees when there's exposure, but not necessarily who tested positive, just for privacy concerns.
Yeah, and it's also to protect the other employee, because there are, just like any other disability or issue, it would be against the Americans Disability Act for your employer to just tell you who has COVID, and those protections apply to you too. So
yeah, and I see a few housing questions. Marina, I can't speak to housing, but we do have a housing unit if you want to call in and ask those questions. I know there's a lot of eviction concerns right now, and that's on a case-by-case basis. And again, we can't speak to that. It's not our practice area. But and then I saw another person asked about their chances of appealing and winning regarding overpayments that was not their fault, and that's a question I'd highly recommend you calling us and going over, because it's going to depend on the details of that. And then lastly, I have a question about PUC benefits being held up based on original unemployment information. And sometimes that's, like Marie was saying earlier, that's resolved with an email, but they are backlogged if you've tried to fix it yourself and you're waiting. That might be the problem. But I think we've run a little bit over. Michelle, do you want to come back on, or?
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies. That was wonderful, so informative. I'm sure you helped so many people. And again, we will be posting this online, so I'm sure it'll help many people to come. So all their contact information and requirements for free legal aid are on our website, unitedwayselah.org/hospitality cares resources. Our next Know Your Rights webinar will be on December 10th at noon. We will be discussing housing rights, topical, and your rights during COVID-19. Make sure to register at unitedwayselah.org/hospitality cares events. I also wanted to plug another resource for counseling. Thank you, ladies, for providing the other one. Part of phase 2, our program phase 2, we're working with Loyola Center for Counseling and Education, and it provides virtual counseling as well for individuals, couples, family settings, but it specifically has group therapy for hospitality industry professionals. Pricing is on a sliding scale, so it could be as little as $10. They don't actually accept insurance to just keep overhead light. No one will be turned down for a lack of funds. And you can access these services by calling 504-864-7858, or you can email lcce@loyno.edu. The only requirements are that you are in the hospitality industry or were in the hospitality industry when COVID broke out, and that you live in our 7-parish area. So again, you can see all of those resources and requirements at our website, Hospitality Cares, United Way, SLLS.org/Hospitality Cares resources. So thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you, Marie and Constance. We will see you guys in a month.
Yep. Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.